This is CBC Here and Now.
That's a horror story.
When he was having a stroke, there was no local emergency room and no ambulance. We'll hear the concerns from St. Lawrence.
The Catholic Church has had a formal presence here in the town of Buren for more than 2 centuries. But that all came to an end with a final mass at this church over the weekend.
I pray every night that that church don't sell and it rats to the ground.
What can I do? Nothing. I done what I could.
I'm Terry Roberts. We'll have that story coming up.
You almost wish there was a lot more thought put into it before it even started.
One abandoned mine has left an entire town fighting for justice. We'll take you to Bay Verte coming up in about 30 minutes. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We start tonight with healthcare. A man in St. Lawrence says it was only thanks to his family that he was able to get to a hospital when he was having a stroke. The local emergency room was shut down, and he says the only ambulance in the area was on another call. Here and Now's Heather Gillis explains.
Rodney Doyle was home in St. Lawrence on a Friday night late in August when he realized something was wrong.
My whole right side went numb. My wife called for an ambulance, no ambulance available.
Normally, the emergency department in St. Lawrence would be a couple of minutes away, but it was closed due to staff shortages. Doyle says the only ambulance working was already taking his neighbor to the next nearest hospital in Buren, a 35-kilometer drive.
We just didn't know if I was going to make it to Bjorn in time or not.
Doyle was having a stroke. He called his brother and son to take him to the hospital. Halfway there, they met up with the ambulance.
And I had to be lifted back out of the truck, put on a stretcher, and brought back to Bjorn Hospital.
Doyle's out of the hospital and doing better today, but wonders what happens the next time he gets sick, and help isn't there.
Oh, it was a very horrific night.
Since the end of July, the ER in St. Lawrence has been closed more than it's been open. Closed sporadically for nearly 70 days because there aren't enough staff. It's one of nearly a dozen rural ERs in the province dealing with intermittent closures due to staff shortages. Doyle, who's also a town councillor, says he's now worried about how the ER closure will affect other St. Lawrence residents because many are seniors.
Someday somebody may pay with their life or something like that.
In a statement, Eastern Health says it wasn't aware of Doyle's situation, but says it's funded a second ambulance when the ER is closed. But the town's mayor says that coverage, like the ER's hours, has been patchy. In the meantime, Doyle has a message for Eastern Health.
I think if you try hard enough, any problem can be solved.
The St. Lawrence ER is scheduled to be closed for the rest of this week straight. It's supposed to be closed until December 5th. In the meantime, Eastern Health says it is trying to recruit more staff to stabilize services. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
The National Association for Radiation Therapists has big concerns about cancer care in this province. Earlier this month, we told you about patients being sent to Toronto for radiation because of a closed unit at the Cancer Centre in St. John's. Well, the Canadian Association of Medical Radiation Technologists says those closures are a grave concern. Ryan Cook joins us now with more on this story. So, Ryan, what is the association saying?
Well, for one, they're very concerned with how this could affect patient care. We spoke with Jennifer Carey, who's the Atlantic manager for the National Association, and she says radiation therapy is always a stressful ordeal for any patient, and now we're having to move some of them away from their homes and their support networks, so that's a big concern. But she's also very concerned about the cause for the closures. The H. Bliss Murphy Cancer Centre in St. John's provides the only radiation in the province, and 8 of 29 radiation therapist positions are vacant. And that's a vacancy rate of about 27%, and Carey says that's a huge problem when you compare it to the rest of the country.
That's pretty uncommon. You know, when we look at kind of vacancy rates across the country, you start to get a little scared about the 10% vacancy rate. And, you know, definitely over COVID, what we're seeing nationally is that the vacancy rates have increased across the board. But that 27% is pretty high.
So our vacancy rate is nearly triple the national average, and Carey says it's made worse by the fact that the Cancer Centre doesn't have casual staff on hand to fill in gaps like vacations or sick days. 7 radiation therapists have left the centre this year, including 2 in the last 2 weeks, and their union president says there's a compounding effect there. Some leave for reasons like better pay and better hours elsewhere, and then as they leave, the burden becomes greater on everyone else, increasing the risk for burnout.
Okay, so Eastern Health has a new radiation unit opening in St. John's next year, as well as a new cancer centre in the Corner Brook Hospital. So what impact will that have?
Well, the association says it's good. More capacity is really an asset. But Jennifer Carey has questions about who is going to run those centres.
If the government can't recruit radiation therapists to their main cancer center in their capital city, I'm worried that they're going to be hard pressed to recruit seasoned radiation therapists into Corner Brook, which could really impact the ability for the center to open at all. I mean, in order to have a cancer center, you need to have radiation therapists giving the radiation therapy.
The Department of Health says it's exploring a number of options, including working towards pay parity with other Atlantic provinces and increasing bursaries to attract new radiation therapists. The department also says it's actively exploring partnerships with schools to secure seat placements for people from this province in hopes that they'll return after graduation to work here.
All right, thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
A storm surge on Sunday washed out the breakwater and did damage to roads in the town of Trepassey. And that comes on the heels of damage caused by Hurricane Earl back in September. Trepassey Mayor Rita Pennell says about 35 people were unable to leave town, and had there been an emergency, no vehicles could get through to help. She says the work to fix the problems created last year wasn't started early enough. She says the town council is meeting to discuss its next move.
I don't know what the government is waiting for. I have talked to the Premier, I have talked to the Minister of Transportation, I've talked to the engineers. Nobody have come to look at it, none of the government officials. Are they waiting for somebody to die? Are they waiting for a tragedy like that? Because right now it's devastation down there.
Yeah, and the reason for that storm surge was an area of low pressure that moved through this weekend, brought lots of rain to the south coast, including parts of the Avalon. But we're on to the next area of low pressure. It's been a fairly active season so far. I thought I'd just show you the numbers again. Snowfall totals as of November, that should say 26th in this case. Close to 100 centimeters of snow has fallen in Corner Brook this year. The average is about 36.7 centimeters. And the record's 114. So the snow that we've seen today and even yesterday likely going to bring us over that record. So going to keep an eye on that. So another area of low pressure moving through today that is bringing more snow and will continue to do so as we head through the night tonight. We're in for a little bit of a break as far as weather goes, but another warm up on the way. I'll get into the details coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, the Premier and senior members of his cabinet met in Labrador today with Indigenous leaders in the province. They held a roundtable discussion to talk about issues such as the cost of living, housing, mental health care, and reconciliation.
Those are all topics that we had a fulsome discussion on. We had some presentations on, and there was an understanding of a collaborative approach being the best approach forward in dealing with these specific issues as they pertain to reconciliation.
I tell people that the road to reconciliation has many steps and it's a long road. But what I'm experiencing in my own relationship with the provincial government, and a lot of it comes out of our regular conversation weekly with the Premier and Minister Dempster and others, is what I refer to, we're seeing action being put into reconciliation. So it's not reconciliation, it's reconciliation. And we're seeing more and more of that in this province. And I think I can say this fairly, maybe more and more than any other province is doing right now in Canada.
Well, another historic shakeup in the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of St. John's occurred over the weekend. The Catholic Church has had a formal presence in the town of Burin for more than 2 centuries. But as Terry Roberts reports, that came to an end on Sunday.
They came with heavy hearts, about 50 of them, all older, some struggling to comprehend the finality of it all.
I was born and raised in this church, brought up my children here, and now to think I don't have a church, don't have a church to go to, it's heartbreaking.
It's our Catholic community, so we're losing that. I don't know if I'll ever get used to going to another place.
Church leaders arrived, including the Archbishop and a former parish priest here who helped guide the building of this church 3 decades ago. And for the final time, organ music rang out at St. Patrick's Church in Buren. We weren't allowed to film inside during the service, but it was an understated affair. Dozens of empty seats, symbolic of a church that has lost a great deal of influence and support as it deals with the fallout of a painful abuse scandal and aging, dwindling congregations. An hour after it began, it was all over. There were prayers for the victims of abuse and for the parishioners who have lost their church. The Catholic Church decided to shut down St. Patrick's and sell the building to raise money needed to compensate victims of abuse. This is just one of many churches in eastern Newfoundland to shut its doors. But here, no real signs of any pushback, no lobbying effort to save the church, not even a post-service reception, mostly acceptance. Too few churchgoers, not enough money to pay the bills.
There's not much you can do about it. You know, you just hope and pray that what they did was for the good of all people.
These Catholics here are being urged to attend the nearby Sacred Heart Church in Marystown.
Once your church goes from your community is gone.
For this woman, it's devastating.
I pray every night that that church don't sell and it rots to the ground.
That's a strong statement, Ms. Kavanagh. Why do you say that?
Because I'm so heartbroken.
For Archbishop Peter Hunt, this has become a familiar scene. He's presided over many church closing services in recent months. Once the service ended, our cameras were allowed inside, a church filled with religious symbols, all the more relevant on this first Sunday of Advent, a place witness to countless life milestones, from baptisms and marriages to funerals. For the last to leave, there was raw emotion.
This is for the betterment of God's church, and we will continue on. We will make a new beginning. It won't be in this church, but we'll make a new beginning in our neighbouring parish of Marystown.
Attend Marystown, I will. Hopefully, like Rita said, everybody will follow along down the road. Sorry about getting emotional, but you know, it's our church and we got married here and our children got baptized here, so it's a very sad day.
It's no longer a church, but it's not the end for this building. It's listed for sale for $450,000. What happens next here will be up to the new owners. Terry Roberts, CBC News, Buren.
Well, if you need a COVID rapid test, try your local library. Kits are now available for free at branches in the St. John's metro area, and they'll soon be available at libraries province-wide.
So right now, the tests are available in the greater St. John's area. They will eventually be available province-wide. There were some weather delays, I understand, affecting our distribution. But as soon as they are received at our headquarters, which is in Stephenville, I think it will take about a week to get them out to all the libraries in the province. This process will be very easy for people who need a COVID test, so they just need to come into a library and let the staff know that they require a test. It's one test per person, although if someone is picking up for their family, we will be able to give them additional tests to take away. Thank you. We are updating our website daily as tests become available across the province, so if someone is wondering if their local library has received the test kits yet, they just need to go onto our website at nlpl.ca, and at the very top they will see which libraries have the tests.
Well, the province has lost another veteran of the Second World War. Charles Starks of Mount Pearl was 100 years old when he died on Friday. He served in the Royal Navy and was a survivor of the Battle of Normandy. On D-Day, when the Allied forces invaded Normandy Beach in 1944, the warship he was on, the HMS Tracker, supplied guns, tanks, and artillery to troops on the beaches. Starks was a 75-year member of the Royal Canadian Legion and was also known as a member of the Singing Legionnaires. In his obituary, his family says Charlie, as he was known, was loved by everyone, and his involvement with the community will be greatly missed.
We've got a bit more snow on the way and a quiet couple of days, but some rain and warm temperatures will be on the way this week. I'll get into the details coming up.
Well, as snow starts to build up in parts of the province, people are anxious to get out on their snowmobile. Some residents in Labrador West are jumping the gun and attempting to go on the ice when it's not safe to do so. Here Now's Daryl Din brings us a story.
The snow has only been on the ground here in Labrador West for just over a couple of weeks, but some people have been tempting Mother Nature by going out on the lakes. The local snowmobile club is frustrated that they have to remind people to stay off the ice.
Crazy. There's not enough ice anywhere yet to be going out. You may have a little bit around shorelines, but other than that, you don't have enough to go out. I would advise everybody to stay off the ice for a while yet. And I mean, there's a lot of the bigger lakes is not even froze over. They're still open water.
Last week, Labrador West Search and Rescue posted some pictures of trails out on some local lakes, reminding folks to stay off the lakes. While you only need 10 centimeters of ice to walk on a lake, you need 15 centimeters for skidoo and a lot thicker for larger vehicles. And you're not just putting yourself in harm's way. If you fall in, you're also putting others at risk. Every year, Search and Rescue say they always get reports of people falling through the ice.
Don't have a death wish. Stay in. Stay on the shoreline. Don't go out on the lakes. Not yet. It's too dangerous. Not only that, you're putting a lot of other people in danger too if you get caught and we got to come get you.
Trail groomers need half a meter of ice to go on the lake, and we're nowhere near that yet. Last year, the trails were ready in December. The year before, it was January. Daryl Din, CBC News, Labrador City.
That's good. Warning to heed. We really haven't had that kind of deep freeze yet to freeze over the lakes and stuff.
No, definitely not. I mean, we've been seeing some colder temperatures, but they haven't been consistent.
Yeah.
And even still, like temperatures are above zero in across most of the island, and then even up across Labrador, not that cold. So let's take a look at where our daytime highs stood today. Around -5 in Lab City, and just around there as well, pretty much for the rest of the Big Land, and then across the island, temperatures between 1 and 9 degrees, warmest along the south coast where we saw some rain today. Taking a look at the current temperatures, haven't really moved too much. In fact, we're going to see these temperatures on the rise. Those 7 and 8 degree temperatures in St. Lawrence and Cape Brace will head further north tonight across the Avalon. Here in the metro area, we'll see those temperatures rise to about 8 tonight, before dropping through the day tomorrow. Up across Labrador, current temperatures down to -14 in Lab City, -12 in Churchill Falls. And then that temperature for Makkovik is currently sitting around -7. So taking a look at what we have on the go right now, rain has pretty much moved off. Reports of some drizzle through parts of Central. And then we still have that snow for Green Bay, White Bay area towards the interior and then towards the west coast as well. And that's going to continue as we head through the night tonight. Just taking a look at the future tracker, doing a pretty good job on that. We will see this generally continue through the next couple of hours. That could be heavy at times. Likely through Central, we'll see some snow that may mix with some rain and or drizzle over the next couple of hours. And again, that warm air, that southerly flow for the essentially eastern half of the island is going to bring in that mild air, along with the potential for some showers through a good chunk of the night tonight. Northern Peninsula, southeastern Labrador, you'll still be seeing that flurry or light snow activity continue. Otherwise, relatively quiet up across the Big Land. But another cold night tonight. Speaking of chilly temperatures, -21 overnight tonight in Lab City, -13 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and then towards the coast, your temperatures will be sitting in the minus single digits and a bit breezy as well, with those winds out of the northwest around 40 to 60 kilometers per hour. Your wind chills will be more like the minus teens as you head out tonight. As far as the island goes, generally hovering around the 0 degree mark through Central and then the west coast as well. And again, a breezy night tonight. Winds are actually going to ramp up a little bit, gusting around 40 to 60 kilometers per hour. Eventually, as the area of low pressure moves, we'll see those winds shift a little bit to northwesterlies. And then again, that warm air moving in. Now, as far as snowfall amounts go, likely going to pick up a good 2 to 5 centimeters widespread through Central West Coast, but some pockets of higher amounts, likely 5 to 10. Varies along the West Coast. Higher elevations, even more than that. You could pick up another 10 to 15. This is from now until tomorrow morning at about 10 a.m. And then for southeastern Labrador, you're looking at your temperature or your snowfall amounts somewhere between 2 to 5 centimeters. But the good news is we're going to get a little bit of a break from all of this snow. I know it feels like it has been relentless for the west coast in those onshore flurries, low after low after low as well, moving through the interior. But we will see a bit of a break, so you'll get to enjoy the snow that has fallen out there as you head through the day on Tuesday. You'll likely see some cloud cover lingering through the day. But the snow will generally end for you. And then, yeah, quiet day, which will be nice. So temperatures will be a bit cold though through central and the west coast, 0 or just below, and then 0 or just above for the eastern half of the island. And then for Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures again in the minus single digits for the most part, minus 13 in Churchill Falls. So we're looking at a quiet couple of days, even through Wednesday. Ridge of high pressure will dominate the weather. But as we head through overnight into Thursday morning, some snow will start up across Labrador. We're watching the next system move in. We'll likely see some windy conditions with this one. A warm up as well. We get into that southerly flow again, bringing some of that warm air as far as Labrador, at least southern areas of Labrador, even through central areas, depending on the track. We may see some rain in the mix as well for you, but I'll break that forecast down for you coming up.
We're still the ones dealing with all the health problems and all the asbestos in the air and everything.
After the break, a look at how an abandoned mine is still affecting the town of Baie Verte and a possible way to get rid of it for good. as many as 5,000 contaminated sites in this province. One of them lies just outside Baie Verte, where an old mine that once brought prosperity to the town now reminds residents of death and decline. This is part 1 of our new series, Toxic Towns.
You almost wish there was a lot more thought put into it before it even started.
We're still the ones dealing with all the health problems and all the asbestos in the air and everything else, right?
We can totally destroy and eliminate the asbestos.
It's like everything here for any young people is gradually disappearing. Our outdoor swimming pool closed this year. We're headed to what used to be the Baie Verte Advocate Mines, asbestos mine. One of only probably 3 or 4 in Canada, I guess. Hasn't much changed in this town since I was a kid, other than the road getting worse. A lot of happy times because, like I said, the town was booming. Most families, all their parents were working there, and just happy times going to school, and everybody enjoying their family. That was my old high school right here, actually. But the only thing is, a lot of people wasn't educated on this asbestos mine. All people seen was money, really, which is normal for any place that has a mine. But a lot of mines don't leave the hazardous material that was left behind after an asbestos mine was developed. And that's the sad part of it all.
Much of the mineral occurs naturally, but a good portion of Baie Verte's asbestos comes from a nearby asbestos mine.
The Baie Verte Advocate Mine, in its heyday, was one of the largest in Canada. But like many industries, this one developed problems. It closed for good in 1995, after 30 years in operation. The buildings now are gone, but the mine remains.
Mixed in with ordinary dirt, stuck onto the sides of cars, even in the town's water supply, there's a high level of asbestos.
In here in the bay, and the easterly wind come in, strong winds, we find a dust out in the town here. So that's one of our bigger problems.
Well, you're looking at many years of blasting and asbestos removal from the core areas where they wanted to get their ore, and then it got shipped way down over that far hill, and the tailings is the result of what's left over after the asbestos ore was removed. One of the things I used to like coming down there for, well, like I said, you went back to where the entrance to the mine is. They had a car wash down there, so as a kid, my dad taking me down there and we'd just come down to go through the car wash, which all the mine employees were supposed to use before they left to come home. But now a lot of the workers would never go through this car wash, so they take all that dust that's been sitting on their vehicle for the whole day and bring it home with them, right? But as a kid, we never saw it as nothing but a good day to hang out with your dad and enjoy a little bit of fun time. A lot of families had tough times there too after the mines closed and all the layoffs, and after someone works at something for so long, for 20 years or more, they're like, what else am I going to do for the rest of my life? Some people were lucky enough to pick up everything and move away and start over again, but not everybody was so lucky.
There was dust everywhere, and nearby the mine was quite definite evidence of asbestos fibers in the trees and in the general surrounding countryside.
In all the years that's been left there, they haven't done anything with it. So every time it gets a warm day and it gets sunny and hot and the wind starts blowing, we've got asbestos exposed again and just air going all the time here. When they actually went and shut down the mine, besides people losing jobs and stuff like that, major issue became that everyone else benefited from it, like provincial government taxes, federal government taxes. But after all of that just fell away, that here we are, a smaller town, and we're unable to deal with it, and it's just been left ever since it's been shut down, and we're still the ones dealing with all the health problems and all the asbestos in the air and everything else, right? There's obviously the concern of the health and everything else that people have had issues with over years, and the high rates of cancer here, and they just want to see someone that seems to be interested in fixing the problem.
In 2008, researchers began investigating the number of miners who'd fallen ill as a result of that toxic dust. At least 45 former employees have won compensation. Over 100 have developed cancer or asbestos-related disease. Michael Breen's father believes he should be counted among them.
We're at what used to be the loading area for all the ships to come in and get the fiber from the asbestos mine here in Bay Vert. And right behind us is the remnants of the tailings that the mines just piled up there over 30 years. It's a pretty ominous sight, really. To have mountains of green trees, and then you come around the corner and see a big mountain of grey. It's sort of a bit dismal, yeah. Like Dad said, he used to work in the plant, and sometimes the light shines through the window and all you see was big clouds of dust, so it's hazardous.
It's inhaled, the fibers being relatively insoluble tend to stay pretty well the lifetime of the individual, and you get the development of something like chronic bronchitis, emphysema, and obstructive lung disease is really the prime condition of asbestosis.
The town's air quality was tested in 2011. The results found airborne asbestos fibers within acceptable limits, but not all residents are convinced they're safe.
It's often very difficult to prove epidemiologically that exposures to these kinds of environmental toxicants, even though they're known toxicants, is responsible for this many cancers or anything else, even environmental problems directly related to waste sites. So instead, they're left with this sense of unease, maybe even dread associated with their local environment. So it breeds a bit of a sense of alienation from the local landscape.
I'm more concerned about what has happened to the town you know, while the mines was in operation, and there wasn't really anything done about it then to keep the townspeople safe. It was just more or less go to work, come home, go to work, come home. We still had all that dust settling on houses and people and clothing, and always seems to be brought up every couple of years, and then it just dwindles away, and people more or less just give up on it. And probably just figuring no one's going to do nothing about it anyway.
Questions of compensation and questions of historical redress are also important aspects of, you know, creating some kind of, if you will, closure for people sort of psychologically or emotionally, but also closure in the sense of, you know, ensuring that the site is more or less put to bed as much as possible.
The solid waste left behind from mining is known as asbestos tailings. The province has no plans to remove it or to fill in the mine. But one company is pitching a plan. It's met with government officials to discuss extracting minerals from the tailings and remove the asbestos. The founder thinks it can be done safely and turn a profit.
Our technology basically decontaminates, destroys and eliminates asbestos fibers. Asbestos is not a mineral, it's a structure. So what the technology does is destroy the structure of asbestos, and basically it neutralizes it.
But the province says the company still has to prove that technology and hasn't committed to any proposals. So the mine stays.
I'm sure it's a hard task to try to figure out how to get rid of it, but if someone comes here and only wants to take care of it because they're going to make more money off it, well, that's not caring about people too much.
Meanwhile, Michael Breen's father continues his fight with cancer. He was originally among the miners compensated, but an appeals court overturned that ruling, saying it's not certain the asbestos is to blame for his sickness.
They overturned it, saying there wasn't enough evidence to support that his non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was caused by asbestos, right? And then my mom pretty much gave up on it all, and they wasn't going to fight no more, so he's been dealing with cancer for 28 years now, or more. But our parents were in this just to make a dollar and put food on the table like everybody else, I guess, but they almost wish there was a lot more thought put into it before it even started, rather than just money, right? I wish it never existed.
Well, next week, we'll bring you to Morton's Harbour, where much of the town drinks from well water that they thought was safe for years. That's part 2 of Toxic Towns, coming up next Monday. An official welcome to the bench for the country's first Indigenous Supreme Court justice. A historic moment today for the Supreme Court of Canada as it welcomed its newest jurist. Michelle Obansawin is the first Indigenous justice to serve on Canada's highest bench. Olivia Stevanovich has more on this milestone appointment.
Since its inception, Canada's highest court has made landmark decisions about Indigenous rights, but never with an Indigenous perspective. Now that's changing as Justice Michelle Obansawin takes her seat on the top bench. Introducing herself in her Algonquin language, Abenaki, before reflecting on breaking the glass ceiling.
I hope that my journey to this court will inspire young women to pursue their dreams. I am a big believer that if you have a goal, work hard, and never give up, you can make things happen and achieve those dreams.
A proud member of Odanak First Nation in Quebec, Obansawin is also a fluently bilingual Franco-Ontarian. She grew up on the outskirts of Sudbury, Ontario, where her dad worked for the mining giant formerly known as Inco.
I have always gotten up and continued, at times with trepidation, but always moving forward.
Obansawin began her legal career with the RCMP and taught Indigenous law at the University of Ottawa after collecting a wealth of academic achievements.
Michelle, you must be running out of degrees to take on.
The Chief Justice calls her appointment an important step towards reconciliation.
I hope your story of persisting in the face of doubt will encourage students listening to today's ceremony to follow their dreams.
Before joining the Supreme Court, Obansawin was the first Indigenous judge named to the Ontario Superior Court of Justice in Ottawa.
I look forward to seeing the diverse perspectives you encapsulate as you enrich the decision-making process as you take on this role.
Known for her expertise in mental health, labor, and Indigenous law, Obansawin replaces retired Justice Michael Moldaver to play a key role in the top court's modernization. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau traveled to Saskatchewan today to visit the James Smith Cree Nation. Trudeau went to the community rocked by a brutal mass stabbing nearly 3 months ago. He visited the cemetery where the victims were buried to pay his respects. On September 4th, a man wielding a knife brutally attacked people in that community and in the nearby village of Weldon. The stabbings left 10 dead and 18 others injured during the Labor Day weekend. The suspect was captured following 3 days of an intense manhunt, but died after being taken into police custody. Authorities have tightened security in Beijing as China deals with growing public anger over its zero-COVID policy. The Chinese capital seemed relatively calm today, unlike the widespread protests over the weekend. Both Beijing and Shanghai recently saw crowds of demonstrators pour into the streets. Many even called for China's powerful leader to step down, a rare display of defiance. The government continues to impose severe lockdowns to contain outbreaks wherever they occur. It's forced millions to remain in their homes for months without proper access to food and medical care. Critics say the government's hardline approach has caused extreme hardship to the people. A former employee with Hydro-Quebec, the provincially owned electricity provider, was released today on bail. He's facing charges of spying for China. The RCMP arrested Yue Sheng Wang earlier this month. Prosecutors consider him a flight risk. Bail conditions include surrendering his passport and carrying a cell phone with geolocation turned on. RCMP allege Wang gave information about Hydro-Quebec to a Chinese university and research center. Tomorrow on CBC Radio's Newfoundland Morning, hear from genetic researchers at Memorial University who say this province has an eye disease only found here and in a small region of Sweden.
Communities pulled together to preserve whales. Now what will become of these spectacular skeletons? Watch for Whale Tales and Trail, Sunday at 11:30 and Monday at 7.
Well, the world's largest active volcano erupted overnight for the first time in nearly 40 years in Hawaii. Mauna Loa lit up the sky shortly before midnight last night local time, ending its longest recorded quiet period. It last erupted in 1984. Scientists say lava flows are contained and are not threatening any communities for now, though winds could carry trace amounts of volcanic gas and ash down the volcano. Mauna Loa rises more than 4,000 meters above the Pacific Ocean and is part of a chain of volcanoes that formed the islands of Hawaii. Spectacular.
Sure, beautiful to look at, but...
Have you ever been to Hawaii?
I have.
Yes, beautiful, isn't it?
It's beautiful. Scary when they erupt, though.
Yes, my goodness. Wouldn't want to be anywhere near that.
No.
So how are we looking for the long range? I know you mentioned earlier a bit of a warm-up coming, a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to start a couple of quiet days. We'll start that trend starting tomorrow. So let's just take a quick look at tomorrow's forecast one more time. So the snow that has been continuing will or should taper to flurries tomorrow afternoon. We might see some lingering flurries along the west coast, but overall the accumulating snow should end. And we may see a few flurries as well for the eastern half of the island, but should taper off through the day. Winds will be a bit breezy as well out of the northwest between 30 to 50 kilometers per hour, and then temperatures a degree or two on either side of zero. As far as Labrador goes, still looking at that chance of flurries through the day. Also, temperatures much cooler for Lab City, about minus 15 overnight. Or rather through the day tomorrow. That's not even your overnight temperatures. And then single-digit temperatures below zero up across coastal areas. And again, a bit breezy for you. Northwesterlies in the morning, at least between 50 to 70 kilometers per hour. Now that's the start of a quiet day even on Wednesday. Ridge of high pressure will dominate the forecast. We may see some cloud cover out ahead of our next weather maker that will move in overnight. But other than that, not a whole lot to talk about. Some breezy conditions in some cases, particularly overnight as this area of low pressure starts to move in. So winds will start to pick up for areas like Lab West and then central Labrador as we head into the morning hours on Thursday. Temperatures will cool down though, thanks to that big ridge of high pressure. It's an Arctic ridge. It'll bring some much cooler temperatures between 0 and -6 across the island, up across Labrador, moderating the temperature a little bit. So somewhere between -6 and -10 across the Big Land. Again, lots of sunshine to start, but you will see that snow move in. So that is going to work its way across the Big Land as we head through the overnight and into Thursday morning. And then some milder temperatures moving in across the island. We get back into that southerly flow, which is going to bring temperatures likely in the single digits, mid to even upper single digits through the day on Thursday. Also some rain, also some windy conditions. Now, it does look like this mild air is going to head towards central Labrador, southeastern Labrador as well. So don't be surprised to see some rain or the snow change to rain, I should say, Thursday evening, and then again heavy rain possible for parts of the province, particularly the south coast. So again, you know, all the snow that has fallen will take a big dent, especially with these mild temperatures as well. So we're talking between 7 and 9 degrees along with some windy conditions. That'll certainly help that situation as well. Northern Peninsula, you're looking at your temperatures in the low single digits, and then up across Labrador, there you go, Happy Valley, Goose Bay, 7 degrees for your Thursday. Now taking a look at the long range, it quiets down for the weekend, which is good news because there's a few Christmas parades or Santa Claus parades happening for the weekend, so I'll definitely keep an eye on that forecast and let you know. But we're talking about 2 to 3 degrees at this point. Central Newfoundland, similar, except we're going to stay a bit more unsettled on the west coast. The chance of some showers will creep back into the forecast as we head into Saturday. And then for Labrador, you're looking at some flurries right back down below zero, but moderating, -1 to -3, and then between -4 and -8 across western Labrador, again with that snow continuing. I want to share this photo because it does look just like a painting, but this is red sky at morning. Emma Curtis shared this shot with us. If you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, send them to my Facebook page, Twitter, or email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, lovely. Thank you, Emma.
Very nice.
Yeah, so the Christmas parade in St. John's was canceled.
It was.
Yesterday. It was pretty wet days, so it made sense.
Absolutely.
And then we have the Corner Brook Parade coming up on Saturday, and I think the downtown Christmas parade is scheduled for
Should be on Sunday.
Yeah.
And then there's a few more too, which I'll find some information on.
Yeah. As we get closer to the days, hopefully the weather will be nice.
I hope it cooperates.
Well, thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. Hope you can join us again tomorrow.
Good night.